All right, I'm Jay Croucher. Welcome to The Pub. We're going to start doing this series to talk about mainly the Premier League. I'm a lifelong Arsenal fan, so I forced NBC into doing this as the Gunners have flipped favourite with the odds makers to win the Premier League out of nowhere after being 50-1. So today is going to be a Gunners-centric show for better or worse. So I'm going to bring in Brad Thomas and special guest Harry Symeou, who covers the Premier League for BBC and Talks Sport and also hosts the definitive Gunners podcast, Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry, let's start with the easy question. Are the Gunners going to win the league?
Oh, don't put me in this position. I get asked this question all the time, and I'm trying to bat off all the pressure that comes towards us around this. I think Arsenal can win the Premier League, right? It's not beyond the realms of possibility. It probably was in a lot of people's eyes at the start of the season, but they've played their way into being sort of favourites now in a lot of people's eyes. And yeah, they can win the Premier League. I think they're going to need a huge slice of luck along the way, though. I think Arsenal need to keep some key players fit. I think that's a big concern for a lot of Arsenal fans, perhaps the lack of depth. But it seems like during this transfer window, the club are trying to address that. So I'm optimistic.
There you go. Yeah, I think the thing is that I think to the neutral, you think of Arsenal and they're top of the league right now. And I think people are still anchored to the idea of Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp, and even when they were competing with the Fabregas, Van Persie teams. But Arsenal were 50-1 to win the Premier League before the season. This would be, outside of Leicester, as improbable a victory as I can imagine. But you raised the point about the squad depth, and it's just broken actually in the past couple hours that looks like Jakub Kiwior from Spezia might be on his way to Arsenal. A lot of rumours around Leandro Trossard as well. Now, I can't say that I've watched a lot of Spezia football this season. I've watched a bit more of Trossard, but what do you think of those potential additions, and do you think they need anything more?
So I think the Trossard addition, to start with, that is a very good one. It's a very shrewd piece of business from Arsenal, in my opinion, because, you know, we know that they looked at Mykhailo Mudryk. We know that they considered going as far as possible for that deal. They ended up pulling the plug when Shakhtar Donetsk, I beg your pardon, demands became crazy. And Arsenal now have looked at the fact that they need to address that wide area. They need some backup in those positions. There are Bukayo Saka or Gabriel Martinelli injury away from a bit of a problem. So Trossard is Premier League proven. You know, he's done it in this division. He's scored plenty of goals for Brighton. He's a constant threat for them. So for Arsenal to be able to grab him for an upfront fee of around about 21 million, as we understand it, feels like really good business. At the end of the day, nobody's going to talk about the short-termism potentially of this deal if Arsenal go on and win the league. He's 28, so it's not a deal that you do with a view to the next 5-6 years. But if he can plug a hole now and help Arsenal and enhance their forward line, then I think it's a really smart piece of business. As for Jakub Kiwior, the Polish defender that they're seemingly close to bringing in from Spezia, he's very much a project, in my opinion. It's a project signing. He's not someone that's going to come in and impact the team straight away. But it's interesting that Mikel Arteta has gone out and brought in a left-sided centre-back, because that would be the one position in the back line that you'd think we were a little bit short. Very different to Gabriel in terms of his profile. So I'm interested to see how that's going to work. Maybe Mikel Arteta plans on kind of coaching some other elements into his game. But he is a player that has attracted attention from a number of top clubs. Roma were interested in the past. West Ham United were linked with him at one point as well. I think with this young man, he's done the right thing. He hasn't opted to make that move too early and look for the big payday. Instead, he's focused on game time and development. And now it looks as though he's going to get his reward for that.
Well, you know, I really wanted Arsenal to get Mudryk. He's an absolute brilliant scorer. My biggest question to you is, how do you see this playing out with Europa? I know Arteta is going to want to focus on winning the league title, but this is the first time that Arsenal has a legitimate shot in winning some silverware, regardless if it's the league title or it's Europa. Do you think he focuses on that? Because I get kind of worried that maybe there might be too much tread on the tires to make a serious run if you're having to balance both of those schedules.
I think Mikel Arteta can't commit one way or the other at this moment in time. I think the league position is very strong. The Europa League doesn't return until March, I believe. So you've got plenty of time to keep working away on the Premier League and see where you're at when that comes around again. The thing is, the Europa League offers a route into the Champions League, and that's ultimately what Arsenal's goal was at the start of the season. So if you'd have asked me this maybe at the start of the season, I would have said the Europa League is just as important. But it feels like Arsenal are going to get Champions League football via the Premier League route anyway. And the opportunity to win a Premier League title would be unbelievable. As a fan growing up, I don't remember Arsenal winning a European trophy. So I do have a real personal want for us to go on and achieve that. But I think for me, first and foremost, if come March, we're still in a similar position to the one we're in now with the Premier League, you've got to bank on that. You've got to go for that. Unai Emery made the decision when he was in charge of going the other way. He prioritized the Europa League. He dropped some key players in Premier League games against Crystal Palace and Brighton that he thought he could win. Arsenal ended up dropping points in both of those games and then missed out on the top four by a single point that year. So he chose the Europa League route. But at the end of the day, European competition, it's a cup competition and anything can happen. Premier League, if you have an off day, you can put it right. You can't put right a one-off game and a knockout tie. So for me, the Premier League has to take precedent. But I wouldn't have said that maybe at the start of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Harry. And to be honest, as an Arsenal fan, couldn't give a stuff about the Europa League. I hope they get knocked out. To be honest, they can just focus on the league. I think they're going to finish top four. They're very, very short to do that. And I just would be concerned that the Europa League might put a bit of stress on a squad that, it's well talked about, just doesn't have the depth of a City or even a Liverpool or United or even a Tottenham, really. But I do think that, in a way, I think the lack of squad depth, I think has kind of helped them to this point because they don't have as much talent as these teams around them. But I just think that the smaller squad, just the continuity, just the ability to play the same 11, 12, 13 guys, this is something that Pep Guardiola did at Barcelona intentionally, where they always seemed like they were 2 or 3 guys short, but he would just, we'll just put Javier Mascherano in central defense if we need to. And I think just having that continuity, having those defined roles has really helped Arsenal. But do you think that is there one guy in particular that they just cannot afford to lose to injury over the next few months?
For me, it's Thomas Partey. I would have said it was Thomas Partey and then Gabriel Jesus. And obviously we lost the latter to an injury during the World Cup. Thankfully, Eddie Nketiah has been able to step up to the plate and fill that void for the time being. But Thomas Partey, to me, is the one that Arsenal simply cannot afford to lose because the drop-off in quality between him and the players that would backfill him, I think, is too significant. And that is a huge concern to me.
Well, let's say, you wanted to replace Gabriel Jesus and Nketiah has been playing great. I've kind of been like a naysayer of Nketiah, especially from a sports better perspective. Do you go out and get a number 9 during this January window, or do you think he is going to be the guy that you ride to the Premier League title?
I think the hope is that Gabriel Jesus will be almost ready to return within the next month or so. So if Arsenal can get through this period with Eddie Nketiah, then great. There's no point in going out and spending a lot of money and bringing in a forward that is going to ultimately be a bench player going forward. I think Arsenal need to spend what they have and spend it wisely because they're not, they're not in the position of Manchester City financially. They have an ownership that won't go that extra mile the way that City's will, that Man United's will. It's just always been the case. But I think that was part of the reason that Arsenal, looked at Leandro Trossard because he is someone who's very versatile across the front line. He can play right, he can play left, and he has from time to time for Brighton played through the middle. So I'm not saying that's the ideal solution, but I think when Mikel Arteta was looking for a forward in this transfer window, he was very keen to bring somebody in who could potentially backfill a number of positions. And add to that, I think Gabriel Martinelli could do that job as well. So I think it's about versatility at the moment. I don't think they're too keen to go and really splash out on a specialist centre forward. I think he will feel now, Mikel Arteta, that he's got options that can cover that.
Yep. Harry, I was feeling a lot better about the league until Tottenham bottled that 2-0 lead yesterday. Thanks a lot for that. Antonio Conte, what a mess of a club that is at the moment in terms of expectations, at least, and how they're performing. But City are obviously the threat. They're neck and neck with Arsenal in the odds. Arsenal are slight favourites, but is there any other team that you're worried about? Are you any concern about United or even Newcastle, or is it just City for you?
At the moment, I'm not massively worried about Newcastle. I feel like there will be a dip for them. That there will be a drop-off at some point. I've been saying that for a few weeks. Hasn't come true yet, but I think it will between now and the end of the season. Manchester United, I thought they might have been right in it if they had beaten Crystal Palace in midweek. That was a big opportunity for them. Obviously, they let it slip in stoppage time thanks to a brilliant goal from Michael Olise. If Manchester United were to win at the weekend against Arsenal, then you have to put them back in contention. But for me, City is the one that you got to look at. If you finish above City, I think you win the league this year.
Yeah. This game this weekend, Harry, against United, Arsenal slight favourites to win that one, at least on the three-way relative to the draw and Man United's price. Are you confident that, particularly with Casemiro suspended, which is just an absolute godsend because he's been huge for them, do you think Arsenal will win this weekend?
I hope they will. I think they've got a great chance of winning. I think it's right that they're favourites. Even if it's slight favourites, I think that's right. I think that's correct. The Casemiro thing is a big deal. A lot of people are looking at that and saying that that's going to be the decisive factor. You've got to remember that Manchester United beat Arsenal earlier on in the season without Casemiro in the starting 11. They're very keen to play on the counter-attack, Manchester United. I think that's what they'll try and do at the Emirates Stadium. And so to have a couple of destroyers in midfield like Scott McTominay and Fred, who I'd imagine will probably get the nod, I don't think is the end of the world for Erik ten Hag and the plan I expect him to implement. But Arsenal have been in great form, especially at home. There's no reason as an Arsenal man not to be confident going into the game. But this is the Premier League and anything can happen. So nothing's done. Nothing's a given. But Arsenal, yeah, rightly so, should be favourites.
Well, Harry, I'm a betting man, and so I scour the odds. I was actually pretty shocked to see Gabriel Martinelli at plus 240 to score a goal and Saka at plus 230 to score a goal. Of the two, I know it's going to be a low-scoring affair, but you're getting 2-1 on your money. Of the two, who would you suggest to be the goal scorer for Arsenal?
I would probably back Bukayo Saka more just because he's a penalty taker at the moment. And I think that's a big thing when you're looking at, goal scorers in the big games like this, where often they're decided by the finest margins. Add to that I think Manchester United on the left side are a little bit weaker defensively than they are on the right, because Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who's been in great form, if he plays at right back for Manchester United, isn't the best getting forward, but he is very, very solid defensively. And I think they'll look to do a number on Gabriel Martinelli. Saka's great too, and they'll be looking to try and silence him as well. But I just think the way he combines with Martin Odegaard in that half space on the right-hand side, the likelihood of him breaking free, I think, or cutting in onto that left foot of his and having a shot from the angle, I think is slightly greater. So if I had to go one way, I'd go Saka.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's stop talking about Arsenal winning games and winning the league. Stop jinxing it. Before we sign off, Harry, how did you become an Arsenal fan originally?
My dad is an Arsenal fan. I had no choice. I was brainwashed, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, there was no choice whatsoever. But it's a family thing. When my family came over to England from Cyprus, they settled in that area, obviously fell in love with the football club, and that's where it comes from. Yeah, very good. I'm very much the same, where growing up in Melbourne, my dad got me onto the Gunners, the 2002 FA Cup final where Ray Parlour scores the worldie in the 70th minute, then Lundberg finishes it off, and then first real sports heartbreak was the 2006 Champions League final when 15 minutes away from a Champions League. And my dad got me in at the high point, because after that and after the Invincible season, it's kind of been all downhill from there for Arsenal, but certainly riding, I think, the biggest wave since probably that 2006 Champions League final. Arsenal at the moment, so hopefully they can close it out. Harry, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell people where to follow you and what you're working on? Thank you so much, guys, for having me. You can find me on Twitter at Harry Symeou. You can find me on Instagram, Harry_Symeou. And you can find me on the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast, which is pretty much a daily show. We do loads and loads of Arsenal content from the matches as well, around the matches, around the biggest news. So yeah, check it out. It's on YouTube and all major podcast stores.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Harry. And let's beat United. All right, there it is. Very stressed, Brad. Trying to get quite real. I didn't like when the books all flipped Arsenal into favourite last week. It was much better when they were a 2-1 shot. But I mean, you look at all of their advanced numbers, the expected goals. Like, they're not as good a team as City. Yep. But the fact that they've banked this 5-point lead with the game in hand, I mean, if they just keep on replicating what they're doing, I do think they're going to win the league. Would you take Arsenal over the field right now?
I actually would, because even with City beating Tottenham, I wasn't overly impressed. I haven't been impressed with City probably 2 games before the World Cup break. It's okay. So we have to call a spade a spade. City are the most talented team, top from bottom. But it's what you do with that talent that's really important. They kind of sleepwalk through games, and they lack a lot of continuity. And some could say it's actually because they got Erling Haaland, and now they have a true number 9 instead of running the false 9. I think that's kind of true because you see they're not gelling that well up front. They don't have that guy who drops in deep and can receive balls and create. Instead, their creativity has to come from other areas, and they have to service Haaland or else he becomes obsolete. So I probably would go with Arsenal because they're so versatile and they actually believe. It's not like they were a bad club last season. They were trending upwards, and then a couple of mistakes, a couple of cards and bookings came out, and they kind of lost that belief and then squandered their Champions League position.
Yeah, I think that, it's right there for them. I think another good thing is that City are going to have the Champions League to worry about, which has really, they've done the league. They've done it. That's job done. So the Champions League is obviously the huge prize for them. I do think a good way to bet Arsenal at the moment to win the league is not necessarily to bet on them to win the title, but you can bet on Martin Odegaard at plus 450 to win Player of the Year. And look, everyone has anointed Erling Haaland for that, and he's minus 200 in the market. But if Arsenal win the league over City, I think it's going to be such an immense surprise that I think there will be a big push for Odegaard. And with Gabriel Jesus done, Odegaard is Arsenal's guy. Yeah. I agree with Harry that Thomas Partey is probably actually their most indispensable player. And when he comes out of the team, it just doesn't click. It's not as clean. But Odegaard has been their standout player. He's their captain. He's the face of the team. And I do think that, if you just do the math, if Arsenal win the league, is he more than a 1 in 3 chance of winning Player of the Year? I would think that he is, and that makes plus 450, I think, a pretty decent bet. Let's transition into the weekend's games, Brad. Yes. What are the best bets on your card?
Okay, so this is not on my card yet, but I had to absolutely mention it, especially since we were talking about goal scorers. Liverpool versus Chelsea. If Mykhailo Mudryk starts, his odds are going to be anywhere from plus 400 to plus 500 to score a goal. You absolutely have to put some money on it. The dude was absolutely insane through the Champions League run. Why I say that is because they played top quality players. So I don't think he's going to have to worry about the physicality changes moving from Shakhtar to Chelsea. I think that this is a line that is an absolute must play. When I think about Liverpool and I think about the struggles that Liverpool have had defensively, Chelsea are going to get one. And so it's going to be someone on the wings. I'm going to have to back that price. It's not an official play by any means because I don't know if he's going to start. But if he does, Jay, you can't talk me off a plus 400, plus 500 for a forward against a team who's been leaking goals.
Yeah, they don't have many options, Chelsea, to be honest, particularly with João Felix, who, they signed for 19 games and he gets suspended for 3 of them already with the red card last week. Yeah, this is a weird game. Start of the season, you might have thought that this would be between 2 teams competing for the title. It's teams in 9th and 10th right now. And the thing is as well is that Chelsea they've overperformed their expected goals. They're worse than 10th than what they've shown so far. So I agree that with both defenses looking a little bit susceptible, there will be goals in this game. I think Liverpool are going to win. They're minus 115 on the 3-way money line. They're a different team at home. Chelsea are a different team for the worse away from home. Darwin Núñez, he's going to come back, it looks like. And yes, Liverpool are banged up, but when you still have Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mo Salah and Núñez coming back, I think they're going to have too much for Graham Potter's Chelsea, who have just been completely woeful. I thought this team would compete for top 2, and they're nowhere near it at the moment. All right, before we sign off, Brad, best bet for the weekend. What do you got?
My best bet, I had to come with it with a corner prop. Leeds United versus Brentford. Leeds over 5.5 corners. It's minus 120. I was hoping I got to the market before it got to minus 120. But listen, this Leeds team will press. They will press on the road. They will press at home. And Brentford's okay with that. Brentford knows they have the quality to counter if they have to, especially away from home. Leeds absolutely destroyed this number on the road. They were at like 6.5 by the 20th minute in their last game. And more importantly, if you want to play percentages, Brentford are allowing this at about a 55 to 60% clip. And that's in a combination of away and at home, and now they're playing away. So it's my absolute favorite play. If you want to look at that game again, too, and you want another bet because you don't like the corner market, both teams to score and over 2.5 goals, you got to play that as well.
Yeah, I think they're going to put that on your tombstone, Brad. Brad Thomas did great work in the community and loved corner props. I know that's very much your domain. All right, we will leave it there at the pub. Thanks again to Harry Symeou for joining. Please, Arsenal, get this win against Man United. We'll all sleep much easier. From Jay Croucher and Brad Thomas, we'll see you soon.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.